The night sky over the quiet farmland was restless. Clouds rolled thick and heavy, covering the moon like a dark blanket. The storm had been building all day, carrying with it the smell of rain and the weight of thunder. By evening, the air shook with each rumble, and the wind hissed through the tall grass. Inside a small wooden farmhouse, Ethan Cole was making sure everything was ready. He checked the shutters twice, tested the lanterns, and piled blankets near the couch. Ethan was a man of simple means, tall, broad-shouldered, with hands rough from years of working as a mechanic in town. Life had been hard since his wife passed 2 years ago, but he carried himself with steady calm. His daughter, Lila, was sitting cross-legged on the floor, a flashlight in one hand and a notebook in the other. She was 10 years old, bright-eyed, and endlessly curious, always scribbling little drawings of rockets and stars. She wasn't afraid of the storm, not really. If anything, she was excited, saying storms made her feel like the sky was alive. "Lila," Ethan said, glancing at her, "don't stay up too late drawing. Power might go out and we'll need to save batteries." She grinned at him, her brown hair falling into her eyes. "Just one more page, Dad." "Promise." Ethan smiled faintly. She reminded him so much of her mother, stubborn, hopeful, and always dreaming. "All right, one more page, then you help me check the barn." Outside, lightning split the sky, turning night into day for a brief second. The wind howled louder, rattling the windows. Ethan frowned. He knew storms like this could down power lines or even tear the roof off if you weren't careful. Still, the farm had seen worse. But then came something strange. Through the roar of thunder, Ethan heard a sound that didn't belong, a sharp whistling like metal tearing through the air. It wasn't the wind, and it wasn't thunder. It was something heavier, something falling. Lila looked up too. "Dad, what was that?" Ethan grabbed his coat and flashlight. "Stay here, kiddo. I'll check." But Lila was already putting on her boots. "No way. You always say storms are safest if we stay together." Ethan wanted to argue, but she was right. He sighed and nodded. "Fine. But stay close to me." They pushed out into the storm, rain slamming against their faces, soaking them in seconds. The flashlight beam wavered in the wind, cutting across the muddy fields. In the distance, toward the forest at the edge of the property, a strange glow pulsed faintly between the trees, blue, silver, and shifting like liquid light. Ethan froze. He had seen plenty of storms in his life, but never light like that. "Dad," Lila whispered, eyes wide. "That's not lightning." "No," Ethan said quietly. "It's not." They trudged forward, mud sucking at their boots. The closer they came, the more the glow revealed itself. Broken branches littered the ground, and the smell of burning metal mixed with the sharp scent of ozone. Then they saw it. Half hidden by trees was a crashed shuttle, not any kind of plane or vehicle Ethan had ever seen. Its hull shimmered like liquid silver, shifting in the rain as though alive. Sparks snapped from its torn edges, and strange symbols glowed faintly across its surface. It was clear this was not from Earth. Ethan's heart pounded. He wasn't a man easily shaken, but this was beyond explanation. Lila's voice trembled with awe. "Dad, it's a spaceship." He swallowed hard, keeping his flashlight steady. "Maybe, but whatever it is, it's dangerous. Stay behind me." Cautiously he approached. The hull groaned like a living thing, opening slightly as though responding to their presence. From inside came a faint sound, weak, broken breathing. Someone was inside. Against all sense of reason, Ethan stepped closer. He aimed the flashlight into the wreckage and froze. A figure lay slumped against the inner wall. Tall, slender, and dressed in a strange, flowing garment that shimmered even in the dim light. Her skin was pale, faintly luminous, and her hair, long and silver, spilled across her shoulders like threads of starlight. She was clearly injured. Blood, though not red but faintly violet, stained her side. Her eyes opened slowly, revealing irises that glowed like twin suns. She looked at Ethan and Lila with exhaustion and relief, whispering words in a strange, melodic tongue. Lila gasped. "Dad, she's not human." Ethan felt his stomach twist. Every instinct told him to back away, to call someone, to hide. But then he looked again. Despite her strange appearance, the pain in her eyes was unmistakably human. She was hurt, frightened, and alone. Without thinking further, Ethan knelt. "It's all right, you're safe." The woman blinked, struggling to form words. After a long pause, she whispered in broken English, "Help, please." That was enough. Ethan turned to Lila. "Grab the blanket from my pack, quick." They wrapped the woman gently, careful not to press against her wound. She was surprisingly light, as if her body carried less weight than it should. Ethan lifted her into his arms, rain pouring over them as thunder shook the trees. Lila held the flashlight, leading the way back to the farmhouse. She kept glancing at the woman, her face glowing with amazement. "Dad, she's like a queen. Look at her." Ethan didn't answer. He was focused on getting her out of the storm. Back inside, Ethan laid the woman carefully on the couch, wrapping her in dry blankets. He fetched his old first aid kit, though it was hardly suited for wounds like hers. Still, he cleaned the injury, bandaged it as best as he could, and tried to keep her warm. Lila hovered nearby, whispering questions. "Where did she come from? Is she an alien? Do you think she has a ship? Can she talk to us?" "Lila," Ethan said firmly, though not unkindly. "Give her space. She's hurt." The woman stirred, eyes flickering open again. Her gaze moved slowly around the room, landing on the family photo sitting on the shelf, Ethan, Lila, and his late wife. Her expression softened. She whispered something in her language, then struggled again with English. "Safe? Here?" "Yes," Ethan said simply. "You're safe here." Her lips curved faintly in what might have been a smile, before exhaustion pulled her back into unconsciousness. Lila looked at her father, voice hushed. "What are we going to do, Dad?" Ethan rubbed his forehead. He didn't know. He had fixed engines, machines, and broken fences all his life, but now in his living room lay a being from the stars. Whoever she was, whatever she was, she needed help. For now, that was enough. "We take care of her," he said at last. "That's what we're gonna do." Lila's eyes sparkled with wonder. "Dad, this is amazing. It's like something out of my stories." Ethan gave a weary smile. He glanced once more at the alien woman wrapped in blankets, her silver hair spilling across the pillow like strands of light. She was a mystery, one he didn't ask for, but one that had now landed right in their lives. Outside, the storm raged, on covering the farm in thunder and rain. But inside, in the small warmth of the farmhouse, 3 lives had already changed forever. The storm lasted through the night. Rain pounded the roof, thunder rolled like drums, and the wind shook the shutters. But inside the farmhouse, it was quiet. Only the steady ticking of an old wall clock and the faint breathing of the stranger filled the room. Ethan Cole sat in a chair beside the couch, his elbows resting on his knees. His rough hands were clasped together, his brow furrowed with thought. He had seen many things in life, but never anything like this. A ship from the stars, and a woman unlike any he had known, now lay sleeping under his roof. He kept glancing at her. Her silver hair shimmered faintly even in the dark, as though it carried its own light. Her face was calm now, free of the pain she had shown earlier. The bandage he had wrapped around her side was holding, though the faint purple stain of her blood still marked it. On the floor beside the couch, Lila had fallen asleep too. She had insisted on staying near the stranger, refusing to leave her side. She clutched her notebook like a treasure, her head resting on a pillow, her breathing soft and even. Ethan sighed quietly. He had questions, too many questions, but answers would have to wait. Morning came slow. The storm broke, leaving the air fresh and heavy with the smell of wet soil. Sunlight spilled through the clouds, painting the fields gold. Birds began to call again as though nothing unusual had happened. But inside, everything had changed. Ethan was cooking breakfast when he heard a soft voice behind him. "Where am I?" He turned. The woman was awake, her glowing eyes studying the small farmhouse. She looked weaker than before, but more alert, her hands gripping the blanket wrapped around her. "You're safe," Ethan said carefully. "This is my home. You crashed last night. I brought you here." Her gaze moved to him, curious and cautious. "You helped me?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. My name's Ethan. That's my daughter, Lila." Lila stirred at the mention of her name, blinking awake. When she saw their guest was sitting up, she gasped and scrambled to her feet. "You're awake. Are you okay?" The woman tilted her head, studying Lila with soft surprise. "Child?" she murmured, her voice carrying a strange melody. "I'm Lila," the girl said brightly. "What's your name?" The woman hesitated, her eyes flickering as though weighing a choice. Finally, she said softly, "Serenia." Lila whispered the name like it was magic. "Serenia. It sounds like stars." Serenia's lips curved faintly into something that might have been a smile. They ate together, though Serenia only touched the food lightly. Ethan noticed she seemed unused to Earth's bread and eggs, but she was polite, tasting everything Lila offered. Lila, of course, was full of questions. "Where are you from? Do you live on a planet or a ship? Do you have friends? Do you have—" "Lila," Ethan interrupted gently. "One question at a time." Serenia lowered her gaze. For a moment she looked older, weighed down by something heavy. Then she spoke softly, her English slow but clear. "I come from far, beyond your skies." She paused. "Not here. Not Earth." Lila's eyes went wide. "So you are from space?" Ethan shot her a look. "Lila." But Serenia nodded, faintly. "Yes, space." Lila bounced on her chair, excitement shining. "Dad, I knew it. She's an alien." Ethan rubbed his temples. All right, let's not get carried away." Still, he couldn't deny it. Serenia was unlike anyone he had ever seen. As the day passed, Serenia rested, but she also observed. She seemed fascinated by small things in the house, an old clock on the wall, the soft ticking of its hands, the faded photographs on the shelf. She studied them as though trying to understand human life through tiny pieces. At one point, she traced her fingers across Lila's notebook. The girl eagerly showed her pages filled with rockets, planets, and little stick figures flying through space. "This is my dream," Lila explained. "I want to fly up there one day, past the clouds, past everything. My mom always said I should. Never stop dreaming." Serenia looked at her for a long time, her glowing eyes softening. She touched the page gently, then whispered, "Dream." "Strong," Lila grinned. "You really think so?" Serenia nodded. Ethan watched quietly. He wasn't a man of big words, but even he could see something forming between his daughter and this strange woman. A connection. That night, Ethan stepped outside to check the barn. The air was cool, the ground damp from the storm. But something made him pause. Far off, near the tree line, lights flickered. Not lanterns, not fireflies. They moved with purpose, gliding low to the ground. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Drones, small machines, glowing faintly as they swept through the forest, scanning. He had seen enough machines in his life to recognize the movement. But these were not human-made. His chest tightened. They were searching for something or someone. He went back inside, forcing calm into his voice. "Serenia, out by the woods there are machines. They look like they're searching." Her expression changed instantly. Calm vanished, replaced by sharp alertness. She gripped the edge of the couch, her voice low. "Hunters." Ethan frowned. "Hunters? They seek me." Her eyes darkened, her tone carrying both fear and anger. Ethan felt his stomach sink. So it wasn't just an accident. Someone, something, was after her. Lila looked between them, alarmed. "Dad? What's happening?" Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. "It's all right, Lila, we'll figure it out." But inside, he knew things had just become much more complicated. The next days passed with a strange balance of peace and tension. By day, Serenia grew stronger. She learned to move around the farmhouse, speaking more English each hour. She asked Ethan questions about farming, about engines, about how people live simple lives on Earth. By night, Ethan kept watch. The drones didn't come closer yet, but he saw them often, flickering in the woods like watchful eyes. Serenia never said much about them, but Ethan noticed the way her hands tightened whenever he mentioned them. He also noticed how she always looked at the sky, as though measuring how far away home really was. Lila, however, cared little for secrets. She followed Serenia everywhere, asking about stars, about ships, about the universe beyond. And Serenia, though cautious, answered her with patience. She taught Lila how to draw simple star maps, showing her where certain constellations would rise at night. She even spoke a few words in her own language, which Lila repeated eagerly. One evening, while the three of them sat by the fireplace, Lila leaned close to Serenia. "You're really special, aren't you?" Serenia looked startled. "Special? You talk like a queen," Lila said. "Like someone important." Ethan stiffened, watching Serenia closely. For a moment, Serenia said nothing. Her eyes flickered with something heavy, something she wasn't ready to share. At last, she only said softly, "Long ago, maybe." Lila tilted her head, confused, but let it go. Ethan didn't. He didn't push, but he stored the words away. Long ago, maybe. It was enough to know she was hiding more than she showed. One night, after Lila had gone to bed, Ethan sat across from Serenia at the kitchen table. The farmhouse was quiet. Only the hum of the old refrigerator filling the silence. "You're not telling me everything," he said at last. Serenia met his gaze, her glowing eyes steady. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she lowered her voice. "I am not just traveler, not just lost." Ethan leaned forward. "Then what are you?" She hesitated. Her lips parted as though to speak, but then she stopped herself. "At last," she whispered, "it is not time." Ethan sighed, rubbing his neck. He wasn't used to mysteries. He was a man who fixed things: engines, fences, tractors. Problems had solutions. But Serenia was not a problem he could fix with a wrench. Still, when he looked at her, he saw no threat, only someone carrying a weight far greater than she let show. "All right," he said quietly. "When it's time, you'll tell me." Serenia nodded slowly. Later that night, Ethan checked on Lila. She was asleep, clutching the notebook she had shown Serenia. On the page was a new drawing, not just a rocket but 3 figures: herself, her father, and Serenia, all holding hands under a sky filled with stars. Ethan's chest tightened. He closed the notebook gently and kissed his daughter's forehead. When he stepped back into the living room, he saw Serenia standing by the window, gazing out at the dark woods. Her voice was quiet, almost to herself. "Hunters draw closer. But I cannot leave yet." Ethan frowned. "Why not?" She looked at him, her glowing eyes reflecting the faint light. "Because of her. Because of Dream." Ethan didn't understand. Not fully. But he knew one thing. Whatever Serenia was, hiding whatever danger was coming, his family was now a part of it, and nothing would ever be the same. The days after the storm settled into a strange rhythm. On the surface, life at the farmhouse looked the same. Ethan repaired fences and checked engines. Lila chased the chickens and filled her notebook with doodles. The sun rose, the wind bent. The grass and the nights were cool and quiet. But inside the house, things were different. Serenia was no longer just a guest lying injured on the couch. Each day she grew stronger. She walked the room slowly, her silver hair glinting even in dim light, her glowing eyes filled with quiet thought. She asked questions about ordinary objects as if everything was new to her. Why clocks ticked, why bread rose in the oven, why the floor creaked when someone walked across it. Ethan answered her as best as he could, though sometimes he caught himself staring. He had never thought much about the things she noticed. To him, a clock was just a clock. To her, it was a wonder. But it was Lila who drew closest to Serenia. Every morning, as soon as breakfast was done, Lila brought her notebook to Serenia. She filled the pages with drawings of rockets, stars, and strange creatures she imagined might live in space. Serenia studied each one with patient eyes, offering quiet words in her melodic voice. One morning, Lila showed her a page filled with messy stars and little arrows pointing upward. "This is my dream," she explained proudly. "I want to fly up there one day, not just in an airplane. I mean really fly, past the clouds, past the moon, all the way into space." Serenia touched the page softly. "Dream," she said. Her English was smoother now, though still gentle and careful. "Dream is strong." Lila's eyes shone. "Do you think I could do it? Do you think humans can go that far one day?" Serenia's gaze grew distant, as though she were looking far beyond the farmhouse walls. "Humans," she murmured, "have much strength, more than you know." Lila grinned, satisfied. She didn't need details. For her, Serenia's words were enough, confirmation that her dream wasn't foolish. Ethan listened from the doorway. He wasn't sure what to think. On one hand, he wanted Lila to hold on to her dreams. On the other, he worried about Serenia filling his daughter's head with ideas that might never be possible. He folded his arms, unsure if he should interrupt. But then Lila laughed, a bright sound that had been rare since her mother's passing. Ethan's heart softened. Whatever Serenia was, she was giving his daughter something precious. Hope. One evening, Serenia asked to see Ethan's workshop. It was a small shed at the edge of the barn, filled with old tools, spare tractor parts, and shelves stacked with bolts and wires. Ethan spent many nights there, fixing engines for neighbors or tinkering with machines just to keep his hands busy. When Serenia stepped inside, her glowing eyes widened slightly. She touched the metal pieces with curious fingers, tilting her head as though listening to their shape. "You fix machines," she said quietly. "Yeah," Ethan replied, watching her carefully. "It's what I do. Always been good with engines." Serenia, crouched by a rusted generator, examining the wiring with surprising skill. Her fingers traced each piece with care, and when she looked up at Ethan, her expression was calm but certain. "You build well. With little, you make much." Ethan blinked. "You can tell that from one look?" She nodded. Then she reached into the folds of her garment and pulled out a small device, something smooth and metallic no bigger than his palm. Its surface glowed faintly with blue lines, but parts of it were cracked and sparking. Ethan stared. "That's from your ship, isn't it?" Serenia didn't answer directly. She only said, "It is broken. I try fix. Need tools." Ethan hesitated. He knew nothing about alien machines, but he knew the look of determination in her eyes. It was the same look he had when fixing a broken tractor for a neighbor. He sighed and handed her a screwdriver. "All right. Show me what you need." Together they worked in silence. Serenia's hands moved with knowledge far beyond his own, but she guided him when she needed help holding parts steady. Sparks flickered, metal hummed, and slowly, the device began to glow brighter. Lila peeked in through the doorway, her eyes wide. "What are you making?" Serenia glanced at her, then back at the device. "Tool," she said simply. Lila tilted her head. "It looks like magic." Serenia's lips curved faintly. "Not magic. Science." Later that night, when Lila had gone to bed, Ethan asked quietly, "What is it really?" That device? Serenia hesitated. Then she whispered, Signal, part of ship. I repaired a call. Ethan's stomach tightened. Call who? Her eyes lowered. Not hunters, not enemies. Safe. It wasn't a full answer, but it was all she gave. Ethan decided not to press, for now. Over the next days, the bond between Serenia and Lila grew deeper. Serenia began teaching her how to read simple star maps, using chalk on the farmhouse floor. She showed her where certain stars rose at night, how they shifted with the seasons, and how to trace lines to form constellations. Lila absorbed every word, her notebook filling with new drawings. I'm going to name my own constellation one day, she announced proudly. The Lila star. Serenia touched her shoulder, gently. Then sky will be brighter. Ethan watched them with quiet wonder. He had never seen his daughter so alive, so hopeful. Serenia had a way of speaking that made even the impossible feel close. But not everything was peaceful. One afternoon, while Ethan was repairing the fence, he saw movement in the distance. 3 small drones floated at the edge of the woods, scanning the fields with beams of pale light. He crouched low, heart pounding. They were closer than before. That evening, he told Serenia. Her expression grew grim. Hunters close, she said. They seek me still. Ethan clenched his jaw. What happens if they find you? Serenia's voice was low. Danger. For me. For you. Lila, sitting at the table, overheard. Her eyes went wide. Dad, they won't hurt us, will they? Ethan forced calm into his voice. No, sweetheart. I won't let that happen. But inside, worry gnawed at him. His life had been simple before. Now, danger hung over his farmhouse like a shadow. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She crept into the living room, where Serenia sat awake by the window, gazing at the stars. Can I sit with you? Lila whispered. Serenia nodded. They sat together in silence for a while, the farmhouse quiet around them. Then Lila spoke softly. Sometimes, I dream about flying, not just in my notebook. Real flying. Do you think I'll ever get the chance? Serenia turned to her, studying her small, hopeful face. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, Yes, one day. Lila's eyes sparkled. Really? You think so? Serenia reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Dreams are seeds. If strong, they grow. If brave, they fly. Lila hugged her tightly, as though those words were the most important she had ever heard. Ethan watched from the hallway, unseen. He leaned against the wall, his chest heavy. Serenia was giving Lila hope, yes, but she was also pulling them into something larger than he understood. He didn't know who Serenia truly was, or why she was hunted. But he knew one thing. His daughter trusted her completely, and for now that was enough. The next morning, Lila bounded into the kitchen, notebook in hand. Dad, I drew something new. Ethan smiled tiredly. Another rocket? No. Lila opened the book to a fresh page. On it was a drawing of 3 figures, herself, Ethan, and Serenia, standing together under a giant starship. Above them, in big letters, she had written, One day my dream will fly. Ethan stared at it, his throat tightening. He had always wanted to keep Lila's feet on the ground, to protect her from disappointment. But seeing her dream take shape on paper, bright and bold, made him realize something. Maybe it wasn't his job to keep her grounded. Maybe it was his job to make sure nothing stopped her from trying to fly. He ruffled her hair gently. It's a good dream, kiddo, Lila beamed. And Serenia says it's possible. Ethan glanced at Serenia, who stood quietly nearby. She held his gaze for a moment, her expression unreadable, but in her eyes, there was a promise. Something was coming, something bigger than all of them. But for now, in that small farmhouse, a little girl's dream had begun to take flight. The summer evening was still. Too still. The air carried no wind, and even the birds had fallen silent. Ethan Cole stood on the porch, staring toward the dark line of trees at the edge of his land. His gut told him trouble was coming. For days, now he had watched the strange drones hovering near the woods, their faint blue lights blinking like watchful eyes. They never crossed into his fields, never came close enough to touch, but every night they crept nearer. Tonight he felt their presence stronger than ever. Inside, Serenia sat at the table with Lila, tracing star maps across a notebook page. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the dim light, and her calm voice carried softly as she explained how the constellations shifted through the seasons. Lila listened with wide eyes. So the stars are always moving? Yes, Serenia answered gently. Always moving. Like rivers in sky. Ethan turned back to the door, his hands clenched at his sides. Moving stars were the least of his worries. Something else was moving. Tonight, something that wanted Serenia. The first sign came after dark. A hum, low and deep, rolled through the fields. Ethan froze. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't wind. It was something mechanical, something alive with power. Dad? Lila asked, sensing his tension. Go upstairs, sweetheart, Ethan said firmly. Now, Lila frowned, but do as I say. His tone left no room for argument. Reluctantly, Lila hurried up the creaking staircase, clutching her notebook. Ethan turned back to Serenia. She had already risen from her chair, her glowing eyes sharp and steady. They come, she said simply. Ethan's chest tightened. Who are they? Her voice was quiet, heavy. Hunters. Soldiers from far. They seek me. Ethan swallowed hard. And if they find you here? Her gaze didn't waver. Then all of us in danger. A sudden flash lit up the fields, bright beams sweeping across the grass like searchlights. Ethan ducked low, pulling Serenia with him. From the trees, 3 tall figures emerged. They weren't human. Their bodies gleamed with metallic armor, their movements smooth and deliberate. Their helmets glowed faintly and strange weapons hummed at their sides. They moved in formation, scanning the ground with mechanical precision. Ethan's mind raced. He had no weapons, no army. He had nothing but his wits, his workshop, and his stubborn refusal to back down. Serenia crouched beside him, her expression calm but resolved. They will not stop, she whispered. They seek Empress. Ethan blinked, stunned. Empress? You? Serenia's silence was the only answer he needed. He stared at her in disbelief. The quiet, graceful woman who had been teaching his daughter about stars was no ordinary traveler. She was a ruler, a leader of something vast and distant. But right. Now she was also someone hunted, and those hunters were stepping into his field. Ethan moved quickly. Stay down, he told Serenia. He slipped into his workshop, heart pounding. His hands flew across the shelves, grabbing wires, batteries, and the heavy flashlight he had modified with spare parts. He had no gun, but he knew machines, and sometimes machines could be tricked. He crouched by the barn door, waiting. When the hunters came close, their scanning beams sweeping across the ground, he flicked a switch. A sudden burst of light and sound roared from the barn. A trap he had rigged using an old car battery and spare speakers. The noise echoed across the field like thunder, and the hunters stumbled, their scanning beams scattering. Ethan didn't wait. He grabbed a metal rod and smashed it against a nearby drone, sending sparks flying. The machine dropped into the mud, twitching uselessly. One hunter turned sharply, their glowing helmet focusing on him. They raised their weapon, humming with power. Before they could fire, Serenia's voice rang out, strong, commanding. Stand down! The hunters froze. Even through their helmets, Ethan felt their hesitation. Serenia stepped into the open, her silver hair catching the light, her eyes blazing with authority. You know who I am, she said firmly. You will not harm them. The hunters lowered their weapons slightly, but their leader stepped forward. His voice came through a crackling speaker, cold and sharp. Empress Serenia, You are ordered to return. Your empire cannot wait. Serenya's expression hardened. Empire may wait. Child cannot. The hunter tilted his head. You risk your throne for one human child? Ethan's chest tightened. He knew who Serenya meant, Lila. Yes, Serenya answered simply. Her dream is worth more than crown. The hunter leader's visor glowed brighter. Then you are unfit to rule. You will come by force. He raised his weapon again. Ethan's instincts roared to life. He wasn't going to let anyone threaten his daughter, not in his home, not ever. He grabbed the heavy metal pipe from his workshop and swung it hard, striking the weapon from the hunter's hand. Sparks flew as it hit the ground. Dad? Lila's voice cried out from the upstairs window. She had ignored his command to stay hidden. She leaned out, clutching her notebook tightly, her eyes wide with fear. The hunters glanced up at her. Serenya moved swiftly, stepping between them and the house. Her voice rang out like steel. Touch her and you face Empress of Illyria. The hunters hesitated again, torn between duty and fear of defying their Empress. Ethan took the chance. He triggered another trap from his workshop, a floodlight that blazed suddenly, blinding bright. The hunters staggered, their helmets flickering as they recalibrated. Serenya, inside. Now! Ethan shouted, but Serenya shook her head. No, this ends tonight. Her hand moved to the small device she had repaired in the workshop days before. With a flick of her wrist, it came alive, glowing brighter, humming with deep power. She lifted it high and the air around her shimmered. From above, a low rumble answered. The clouds split, and a sleek starship descended silently, its silver surface reflecting the moonlight. The hunters froze, their formation breaking. Serenya's voice carried over the fields, calm and commanding. Leave this world. Return to Illyria. Tell them the Empress walks her own path. The hunters hesitated, then slowly retreated, their figures melting back into the trees. The drones followed, fading into the night until only silence remained. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of Serenya's device and the distant purr of the descending starship. Ethan stared at her, chest heaving. You really are an Empress. Serenya lowered the device, her glowing eyes meeting his. Yes. He shook his head, still trying to understand. Then why stay here? Why risk everything? Serenya glanced up at the window, where Lila still leaned out, clutching her notebook with trembling hands. Her voice softened. Because of her. Because of Dream. Ethan followed her gaze. His daughter, small but fearless, looking down with hope even in danger. His heart swelled with both pride and fear. Serenya turned back to him. Your courage tonight. It shows why humans are strong. Stronger than Empire believes. Ethan let out a long breath. I'm just a mechanic on a farm. Serenya shook her head gently. No, you are father. That is greater. The starship hovered above them, silent and waiting. Its silver surface gleamed like a second moon. Serenya stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on Ethan's arm. I must leave soon, she said softly. But before I go, I will give gift for child. Ethan's throat tightened. Lila? Serenya nodded. Her dream. It must not die. Inside the farmhouse, Lila sat on the stairs, staring at Serenya with wide eyes. You scared them away. You're really a queen from the stars, aren't you? Serenya knelt before her, her glowing eyes soft. Not queen, Empress, but tonight, just friend. Lila clutched her notebook tightly, her voice trembling. Will you leave us now? Serenya placed a hand gently over hers. One day soon, but not without promise. She reached into her garment and drew out a small crystal, glowing faintly with starlight. She placed it in Lila's palm. This is Star Map Key. It will guide when time comes. Your dream will fly. Lila stared at the crystal, tears filling her eyes. Really? Serenya nodded. Really? That night, long after the hunters had gone, the farmhouse was quiet again. But inside, everything had changed. Ethan sat by the window, staring at the silver starship hovering in the distance. Serenia stood beside him, her voice calm. "Your courage reminded me why empires rise and why they fall," she said softly. "Humanity will surprise the stars." Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked upstairs where Lila was fast asleep, the glowing crystal resting on her nightstand. Her dream had found wings tonight, fragile but real. He turned back to Serenia, his voice steady. "Then let's make sure nothing takes that dream away." Serenia's lips curved faintly into a smile. Together. The night after the hunters retreated was quiet again, but the silence felt heavy. The silver starship still hovered in the distance above the fields, shining faintly against the stars. It waited patiently, like a guardian or a messenger, reminding Ethan Cole that his life would never be simple again. Inside the farmhouse, Lila slept with her new treasure, the glowing crystal Serenia had given her, resting on the nightstand beside her bed. Its soft light filled the room like a tiny star, keeping shadows away. Every time she stirred in her sleep, her hand reached toward it, as if she feared it might vanish. Downstairs, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with Serenia. Neither of them had spoken much since the confrontation. Ethan's rough hands rested on the table while Serenia sat across from him, her silver hair falling over her shoulders. At last, Ethan broke the silence. "You should tell me the truth now. All of it." Serenia's glowing eyes studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. She spoke softly, her words carrying both strength and sorrow. "I am Serenia Valoran, Empress of the Aelyrian Dominion. My empire stretches across many stars. For years I ruled from a throne of light. But power brings enemies. Some sought to control me, others to replace me. When I refused, they tried to end me. My ship was struck. I escaped. I fell here." She lowered her gaze. "I thought Earth would be only hiding place. But instead, I found more." Ethan leaned back slowly, letting her words sink in. He rubbed a hand over his face. "So you're a queen or an empress from the stars, and those things out there, those hunters, they're from your empire?" "Yes," Serenia admitted. "Loyal to throne, but not to me. They would drag me back in chains, force me to rule as puppet. That is not rule, that is prison." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And they'd kill anyone who stood in their way." She nodded silently. For a long time, Ethan said nothing. His life had been simple before. Hard, yes, but simple. Now it was tangled with empires and hunters and the fate of someone far greater than him. He looked toward the ceiling, where his daughter slept peacefully. Finally, he asked the question that had been burning in him since the beginning. "Why stay here? Why risk your life for us? For her?" Serenia's eyes softened. "Because your daughter reminded me of something I had forgotten." "What's that?" She looked toward the window, toward the night sky filled with stars. "Dreams. Empires chase power, but power alone is empty. Dreams are what give meaning. Your child carries dreams so pure, so strong that it touched even me. It reminded me why stars are worth crossing." Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't know what to say. Morning came clear and bright. Lila burst into the kitchen, the crystal clutched in her hand. "Dad, Serenia, I had the best dream. I was flying in a spaceship, past all the stars, and it felt so real." Ethan managed a tired smile. "Sounds like a good dream." Lila nodded eagerly. She held the crystal out to Serenia. "You said this is a star map key. Does that mean it can really take me to the stars one day?" Serenia crouched to her level, her voice soft. "Yes. When time comes, it will guide you." Lila's eyes shone with wonder. "Then I'll keep it forever." Ethan watched the exchange silently. Part of him wanted to tell Lila not to cling to impossible dreams. But another part of him, the part that had seen Serenia summon a starship from the sky, knew better. That afternoon, the starship descended lower, its shadow stretching across the fields. Its silver hull gleamed, smooth and silent like a piece of the heavens itself. Serenia stood at the porch, gazing at it with a mixture of longing and sadness. "It is time," she said quietly. Lila froze. "You're leaving?" Serenia turned to her, kneeling again so their eyes met. "Yes, I must go. If I stay, hunters will return. More will come. You and your father will never be safe." Tears welled in Lila's eyes. "But I don't want you to leave." Serenia reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Little star, I am not gone. I will always be with you. This," she tapped the crystal, "is part of me. When you look at stars, remember I look too." Lila hugged her tightly, refusing to let go. Ethan felt his throat tighten as he watched. He wanted to tell Serenia to stay too, but he knew she was right. Safety for Lila came first. Before leaving, Serenia took Ethan aside. They stood near the barn, the morning sun painting gold across the fields. "You showed courage," she said. "More than many leaders I have known." Ethan shook his head. "I'm no leader. I'm just a dad trying to protect his kid." Serenia's lips curved faintly. "That is greatest leader of all." Ethan looked at her, his rough hands tightening at his sides. "Will we see you again?" Her glowing eyes held his for a long moment. Then she said softly, "When stars call, yes." The starship's door opened with a hiss of light. Serenia stepped inside, her silver figure framed by the glow. She turned one last time, her gaze falling on Lila, who stood clutching her crystal with both hands. "Dream strong, little star," Serenia said, her voice carrying across the field. "One day your dream will fly." Then the door closed and the starship rose. Lila and Ethan stood side by side as the ship climbed higher and higher, until it vanished into the sky, leaving only a faint shimmer where it had been. For a long time, they said nothing. The wind whispered through the grass and the world seemed almost normal again. Finally, Lila whispered, "Dad?" "Yes, kiddo. Do you think she's right? Do you think my dream will fly one day?" Ethan looked down at her, at the way the crystal glowed in her small hands. He thought of Serenia's words, of the hunters, of the ship disappearing into the stars. He thought of his wife, who had always told Lila to keep dreaming. And for the first time, he didn't feel the need to protect Lila from disappointment. He felt the need to protect her dream. He knelt, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Yeah, Lila, I think one day you'll fly. Maybe farther than any of us can imagine." Lila smiled, her tears drying. She held the crystal high, as if showing it, to the whole sky. "Then I'll never stop dreaming." The weeks that followed felt quieter but not empty. Life on the farm continued. Chores, repairs, dinners around the table. But there was a new spark in everything. At night, Lila studied her star map key, sketching constellations with more detail than ever. She spoke of building rockets, of learning, science, of preparing herself for the future. And every time Ethan looked at her, he saw not just his little girl, but someone destined for more. Serenia's words echoed in his mind. Dreams are seeds. If strong, they grow. If brave, they fly. One evening, weeks later, Ethan found Lila on the porch, staring at the stars. She turned to him, her eyes bright. "Dad," she said seriously, "when I grow up, I'm going to build a ship. Not just drawings, a real one. And I'll use Serenia's crystal to find her again." Ethan sat beside her, the wooden boards creaking under his weight. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Then I'll help you. I'll build engines, fix whatever breaks. You dream it, and I'll make sure it flies." Lila leaned against him, smiling. "Together? Always," Ethan said firmly. Above them, the stars shimmered, endless and bright. Somewhere out there, Serenia was watching, keeping her promise. And here, on a small farm on Earth, a dream had taken root, one that would one day rise beyond the sky.